every day now we're approving visa revocations. If you tell us when you apply for a visa, I'm coming to the U.S. to participate in pro-Hamas events, that runs counter to the foreign policy interest of the United States of America. It's that simple. So you lied. You came. If you had told us that you were going to do that, we never would have given you the visa. Now you're here. Now you do it. So you lied to us. You're out. It's that simple.
The Trump administration crackdown against hate continues. The DHS announcing that it has denied a Brown University doctor re-entry to the United States because of her support and sympathy for the terror group Hezbollah. That includes attending the funeral of Hezbollah's former leader. And now the elite school is telling international students and staff to avoid travel outside the United States. Joining us now is Brooke Goldstein, Executive Director of the Lawfare Project. Great to have you here. Here's what DHS posted about Dr. Alawieh. That last month she traveled to Beirut. She attended the funeral of Hassan Nasrallah. He was, of course, a brutal terrorist who led Hezbollah, responsible for killing hundreds of Americans over a 4-decade terror spree. Alawieh openly admitted to this to CBP officers, as well as her support of Nasrallah. A visa is a privilege, not a right, and goes on to say what Rubio said. How does the government fare on this one, Brooke?
I think very well. I don't think there could be a stronger case not to allow someone entry into this country if they've provided allegedly material support to a designated terrorist group. And I think all of the arguments about free speech are very dangerously and intentionally misleading. You do not have a free speech right to come into this country after attending the funeral of a terrorist leader that has participated in multiple attacks that have killed American citizens. You know, I'm so concerned with Brown University's response here. They are advising their own students not to travel, and they've released a statement saying they're concerned about the pipeline.
Let me put this up on the screen. So this is Brown University, and a letter to students yesterday was reported widely that we understand that many in our community are feeling a great deal of uncertainty and anxiety. Out of an abundance of caution, we encourage international students, staff, faculty, and scholars, including U.S. visa holders and permanent residents or green card holders, to consider postponing or delaying personal travel outside the United States. So they put the chill on. I want to ask you one thing, though. So Alawieh, as I understand it, she did attend the funeral. She said that to DHS. But is attending a funeral considered material support?
Well, we don't know exactly what she did at that funeral, and I would argue, yes, it is. It's not a matter of free speech. You are flying to a foreign country to show your support for a designated terrorist group. And what's so troubling about Brown University's statement is how many people do they have at that school that they're concerned that they shouldn't travel outside the country. They shouldn't be concerned unless they're importing terror supporters as doctors and medical students. And how would this woman even take the Hippocratic Oath when her spiritual leader is Hassan Nasrallah, who has called for the elimination of Americans, who supports the killing of American civilians and Jewish babies, all for the sake of jihad? It's insane what's going on at this university. They should be concerned about the process by which they're vetting the people that they are bringing into this country.
I think the media coverage is also interesting. Look at these headlines. It's just a variety from PBS, NBC, and The Independent. You know, the headlines don't get you into the whole story, but a lot of people just read the headlines, and it says the professor was deported without explanation or despite having valid visa. And they're not getting, you know, if you're just scanning the headlines, you might think that this is some sort of rogue operation. This was specific, and she had deleted the photos on her phone in anticipation of there being questions about it. Let me give you the last word.
Well, the truth is she wasn't so much deported as she was denied entry. She was never really allowed into this country. And the question is, what do we want this country to look like? Do we want a country? We cannot have a country if we have complete open borders and there's no vetting and we're allowing terrorist supporters in our country.
All right, Brooke Goldstein, lots of moving parts today. We appreciate you helping us this morning. Thank you.
All right, there is also this. The Trump administration has until noon today to explain the details of the El Salvador migrant flights to a federal judge or submit a reason for not doing so. The judge, appointed by President Obama, is also facing impeachment efforts by some on the right. Former Deputy Assistant DHS Secretary Jonathan Fahey joins me now on all of this. Jonathan, good morning to you. So the latest on this is that the judge wants the Trump administration to answer a bunch of questions by noon today. How many people were on these flights? How many flights were there? Where did they land? But the point is that that the Trump administration is now having to fight in court to get gang members out of this country. So legally, how do you see this playing out?
Yeah, that's a great point, that they are having to fight to kick out gang members. Here's how I expect it to play out. The Trump administration may lose the issue with this district judge who already seems predisposed to rule against them, but they're ultimately going to win in the appellate court and ultimately the Supreme Court if it goes that far, because this Alien Enemies Act gives the discretion to the president to make these decisions to decide if this is an alien incursion and to remove them. The whole purpose of the act was to do this without judicial review, without courts being involved. And, you know, I think the White House has discussed this. If they had to put every deportation of a gang member, of somebody that was invading our country, in front of a district judge, you couldn't even repel these people. And the very big point is all of this happened because the Biden administration flew all of these people in or brought them in from Venezuela, knowing that many of them were probably gang members and not even vetting for that. So they created this issue, and that was sort of part of the game, is to bring in so many people that deportation becomes just overwhelmingly burdensome. But ultimately, to your question, the Trump administration will ultimately win this issue because discretion is given to the executive branch in this type of issues of war, issues of national security.
Yeah, and also on the deportation front, Jonathan, a Brown University assistant professor here on an H-1B visa has been deported after she traveled to Lebanon last month to attend a funeral for the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, who is responsible for killing hundreds of Americans. DHS posted this on X, saying that she openly admitted to this to CBP officers, as well as her support of Nasrallah. A visa is a privilege, not a right. Glorifying and supporting terrorists who kill Americans is grounds for visa issuance and to be denied. This is common sense security. But there is going to be a legal fight for this woman's future. So how do you see this one playing out?
I think this plays out the exact same way because the visa process, the discretion is given to the Secretary of State on issuing visas or revoking visas without judicial review. So ultimately, they will be successful. And think about what they're doing here. They're deciding not to admit someone because she had traveled abroad and was coming back. If they see ties to a terrorist organization or things like that, they have a national security responsibility to keep people like this out. And it is pretty remarkable. You see the support for her at Brown University and other places more broadly. And it's kind of funny that there's more support for people that support, terrorist organizations than there are for people that support Donald Trump or somebody like that, which is really disgraceful if you think about it.
Yeah, and Democrats have openly admitted that they're searching for a leader and a message. And from a messaging standpoint, over the past week, it has been that they're fighting to keep known gang members and Hamas and Hezbollah sympathizers in this country, which is not a winning strategy. Jonathan, got to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.